In the aftermath of the Great War, Europe lay in ruins. The Treaty of Versailles, meant to secure lasting peace, instead sowed the seeds of another, far more devastating conflict. But behind the scenes, in the corridors of power in the United States and the United Kingdom, a different plan was unfolding, a plan that would shape the rise of Adolf Hitler and the horrors of World War II. The Treaty of Versailles placed crushing reparations on Germany. Stripped of its colonies, military might, and economic stability, the nation was plunged into a state of chaos. Hyperinflation turned the Deutsche Mark into worthless paper, and millions of Germans found themselves destitute. The Treaty of Versailles was less a peace agreement and more an instrument of revenge. It was designed to cripple Germany economically and politically. But in doing so, it created the perfect breeding ground for extremism and despair. However, while the German people suffered, powerful interests in the United States and the United Kingdom saw opportunity. They moved quickly to exploit Germany's economic vulnerability for their own gain. As Germany buckled under the weight of reparations, American and British businesses began buying up German assets at rock-bottom prices. Banks, factories, and industries were snapped up by Western corporations, giving them significant control over the German economy. This wasn't just about profit, it was about power. By controlling Germany's key industries, Western interests could exert influence over the nation's political direction. And they saw in Hitler a man who could restore order and counter the growing threat of Bolshevism from the East. In the eyes of many in the West, communism was the greatest threat to their interests. The Russian Revolution of 1917 had already set Europe on edge, and the specter of Bolshevism loomed large. For the powers in London and Washington, Hitler was seen as a bulwark against this red tide. It's a dark irony. While the public narrative was one of Hitler being an unpredictable and dangerous demagogue, in reality, key figures in the US and UK saw him as a useful tool. They believed that with enough support, Hitler could stabilize Germany and serve as a counterweight to Soviet influence in Europe. The documentary Everything is a Rich Man's Trick delves deep into the theory that much of modern history, including the rise of Hitler, was not the result of chance or national interests, but the deliberate actions of a global elite. This elite, driven by power and profit, manipulated events to serve their own ends. The film argues that World War II was not just a tragic consequence of failed diplomacy or German aggression. Instead, it posits that the war, and Hitler's rise, were carefully orchestrated by a network of industrialists, bankers, and politicians. The end goal was to control the global economy and suppress the spread of communism. According to the film, the same interests that propped up Hitler also profited immensely from the war. And when it was over, they emerged even more powerful, having reshaped the world to their liking. The idea that Hitler was supported, even indirectly, by Western powers remains controversial, but the evidence is there, hidden in plain sight. The legacy of this betrayal is complex, raising questions about the true motivations behind the world's deadliest conflict. It's important to recognize that history is rarely black and white. The support Hitler received from certain sectors of the West doesn't absolve him of his crimes, but it does force us to reconsider the narrative we've been told, that Hitler's rise was solely the result of German nationalism or European appeasement. In the end, the rise of Hitler serves as a chilling reminder of what can happen when power and greed go unchecked. The complicity of Western businesses and governments in his ascent is a dark chapter in history, one that challenges our understanding of the past and forces us to confront uncomfortable truths. As we look back on the 20th century, we must ask ourselves, how much of our history was truly shaped by the people's will and how much was orchestrated by those in the shadows? The answers may be unsettling, but they are crucial if we are to learn from the past and safeguard our future.